Your neighbor hired a landscaping company last spring, $1,200 for the initial install, $80 every 2 weeks for maintenance through summer, another $300 in fall cleanup. And this coming June, he is going to do it all over again because every single thing they planted needs to be replaced. The annuals died at first frost. The ornamental grasses they chose were wrong for his zone and rotted over winter. And the perennials that were supposed to come back didn't because nobody told him that cheap nursery stock planted in summer heat with no establishment time doesn't survive an American July without daily irrigation. He spent over $2,000 last year on a yard that looked mediocre for 4 months and is currently bare dirt covered in wood chip mulch. You are about to spend $40 this June and create something that will still be expanding, still be deepening, still be more beautiful than what he paid for in 10 years. This is not a gardening video. This is a financial intervention disguised as a gardening video, and the 11 plants I'm about to give you are the proof. Plant 1, Creeping Jenny. Most people scroll past this one at the nursery because it does not have dramatic flowers, and they are standing there looking for something that photographs well in the first 2 weeks. They are solving the wrong problem entirely. Lysimachia nummularia is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it does the single thing that costs American homeowners more frustration per square foot than almost any other yard problem. It eliminates bare ground permanently, completely, and at a speed that genuinely surprises first-time growers. Bright chartreuse to golden yellow rounded leaves on trailing stems that move outward in every direction simultaneously, threading between stepping stones, spilling over retaining wall edges, filling the impossible dry gaps between established shrubs where mulch keeps washing away and weeds keep finding their way back no matter how many times you pull them. It roots wherever its stems contact soil, quietly claiming new territory every week throughout the growing season without any encouragement from you. By the end of its first summer, it has covered ground you have been losing the battle over for years. By the end of its second summer, it owns that ground so completely that weeds cannot establish beneath the dense mat of foliage it produces. The golden variety, Aurea, glows in shade and part shade conditions, the way very few plants manage to, creating warm, reflected light in the dark corners of a yard that usually feel like dead zones. It is semi-evergreen in zones 6 and warmer, contributing color and ground coverage through months when everything around it has gone dormant. June soil temperatures give Creeping Jenny exactly the warm rooting conditions it establishes fastest in. Plant it now, and by August, you will not recognize the ground it is covering. Plant 2, Ironweed. There is a moment this plant creates in late August and September that I am going to try to describe. And I already know the description will not fully do it justice until you see it yourself. Vernonia noveboracensis is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 9, and when it blooms, it produces clusters of the most intensely saturated purple in the entire American native plant palette. Not lavender, not violet, not the soft blued out purple that most purple flowers actually are when you look at them honestly in real light. True, vivid, electric, unambiguous purple that looks almost digitally enhanced in photographs, and even more astonishing in person on a clear September morning when low light hits it sideways and the color seems to be radiating from inside the plant rather than reflecting off its surface. It grows 4 to 6 feet tall, which means it belongs at the back of a border or in a naturalized area where that height becomes presence and drama rather than a problem to manage. It blooms when almost nothing else of comparable visual power is available to American gardeners. That brutal August through October window, when most yards have completely surrendered to heat exhaustion and the slow approach of frost. When your neighbors' gardens are brown and apologetic in September, Ironweed is producing the most vivid color in a 1-mile radius without a single dollar of irrigation or fertilizer behind it. Monarch butterflies use it as a critical fueling station during fall migration. Research from Monarch Watch documents ironweed as one of the highest value late-season nectar sources on the eastern and central migration flyways. Plant it this June in full sun, in average to dry soil, and it will reward that one decision with a September display that stops strangers on the sidewalk in front of your house and makes them take photographs of your yard with their phone. That is the return on one June planting decision. Plant 3, Little Bluestem. Forget for a moment everything the lawn care industry has spent 50 years telling you a yard is supposed to look like. Little Bluestem is about to make that entire conversation feel like a waste of time and money, which it largely has been. Schizochyrium scoparium is a native grass hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, the entire continental United States, and it has been thriving in every climate this country produces without irrigation, without fertilizer, and without human attention since long before anyone invented a lawnmower or a bag of slow-release granules. Through summer, it stands 3 feet tall in upright blue-green clumps that look clean and architectural in a way that manufactured lawn grass never quite manages to be. and then September arrives. And little blue stem does the thing that stops people mid-conversation when they see it for the first time in someone's yard. It turns copper and burnt orange and deep burgundy and rich red, all moving through the same plant at the same time. A color display so warm and so saturated that your yard in October looks like it is generating its own light. That color holds through November. It holds through December. On a gray January morning with frost on the ground and every other plant in the neighborhood reduced to bare sticks and dead mulch, little blue stem is standing in full color above the snow, giving your yard more visual life in the coldest month of the year than most conventional gardens manage at their absolute peak in June. It needs no supplemental water once established, no fertilizer ever. Rich amended soil makes it weak and floppy. Poor, dry, rocky, compacted, nutrient-stripped soil makes it stand taller and color harder than anything you could engineer with inputs. Plant it in your worst spot. That is not a consolation. That is the instruction. 3 plants in, and if Bloom Roots is already changing what you believe your yard is capable of this June, subscribe right now. Not at the end, right now before plant 4. Because I know something about the gardeners who subscribe in the middle of a video. They are the ones who actually go to the nursery. They are the ones who send me photos in September. They are the ones whose yards other people stop and ask about. Hit that button, it takes 4 seconds, and this level of information finds you every single week going forward. Subscribe now and keep going, because plant 4 is the one that makes the deer problem you have been managing, with spray bottles and temporary fencing, look like a problem someone else invented. Plant 4, Russian sage. If deer have eaten your garden 2 years running, and you have officially exhausted your patience with every spray repellent that washes off in the first rain and needs reapplying every week all season long, this is the conversation you needed to have before you spend another dollar on anything that goes in the ground. Perovskia atriplycifolia is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 9, and it produces a haze of tiny violet-blue flowers on silver-white stems from midsummer all the way through October, a full 4 months of bloom, creating an almost ethereal cloud of color that looks more like a painting than a plant, and does it in the hottest, driest, most exposed conditions your yard produces without asking you for anything in return. The foliage is powerfully aromatic, and that aroma is the mechanism. Deer evaluate plants by scent before they ever attempt to eat them. Russian sage's aromatic oils are strong enough to put deer off at the approach stage, before contact happens, before they are close enough to taste it. Unlike spray repellents that lose their effectiveness in rain and degrade in UV within days of application, this plant is the repellent. It is on all day, all season, every season, without reapplication, without cost, without you thinking about it once. In June, warm soil temperatures give Russian sage the establishment window it needs to root deeply before peak summer heat. Plant it now in full sun in the driest, most neglected, most difficult spot you have, and watch it do something there that nothing else you have tried in that spot has managed to do. Plant 5, wild bergamot. Here is what the cultivated bee balm at the garden center does not tell you. It was bred for showier flowers, and that breeding cost it most of the drought tolerance, self-sufficiency, and raw ecological value that made the original plant one of the most productive wildlife plants in American horticulture. Wild bergamot is the original plant before horticulture got involved. Monarda fistulosa is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it is one of the most ecologically productive flowering perennials native to this continent. Lavender to soft purple flower heads from midsummer through late summer, each one a dense cluster of tubular flowers that native bumblebees, monarch butterflies, tiger swallowtails, and ruby-throated hummingbirds all work simultaneously on a good July morning. The wildlife activity a single established clump produces in peak bloom is something you have to see in your own yard to fully believe. It evolved on open American prairies where summer rainfall is unreliable by definition, which means drought tolerance is not a feature someone added to it in a breeding program. It is the plant's fundamental operating condition, the baseline from which it starts. It spreads through underground rhizomes and self-seeds freely, filling a large area within 2 to 3 seasons without any help from you. The leaves are strongly aromatic when brushed and brew into a tea that tastes like a wilder, more complex version of Earl Grey. You are planting a wildlife magnet, a living drought barrier, a deer-resistant border plant, and a kitchen herb in a single June decision. The hybrid version at the nursery for $12 cannot make that offer. Plant 6, prairie dropseed. The landscapers who know this plant are using it in every premium residential project they manage, and very few of them volunteer what it is to their clients. Because part of the professional advantage of knowing prairie dropseed is that most homeowners in your neighborhood have never heard of it, and that gap is what makes a designed yard look designed rather than assembled. Sporobolus heterolepis is a native grass hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8, and it forms a perfect symmetrical arching mound 2 feet tall and 2 feet wide with a natural precision that looks like it was shaped by hand every week. It was not shaped by anyone. That is its default form, and it holds it all season without edging, without trimming, without a single minute of maintenance from you. In late summer, it sends up delicate seed stalks that catch morning and evening light in a way gardeners consistently describe as luminous, and that word is not poetic exaggeration. The seed heads glow in low light, and birds work them from August through November, creating movement and sound in the planting that makes it feel alive in a way that mulch and stone never can. Here is the detail that stops every gardener the first time they discover it. Prairie drop seed is fragrant. On warm, humid evenings in August, when the seed heads are fully open, a mass planting smells unmistakably of buttered popcorn and coriander. Visitors will stop walking. They will look around, trying to find the source. They will eventually crouch near the seed heads and look up at you with an expression that says they did not know a grass could do that. June planting gives prairie drop seed the warm soil establishment it needs to lock in before fall. Year 1, it builds quietly underground. Year 2, it announces itself. Year 3, it is the plant that defines the character of your entire yard. 6 plants in, and I want you to stop for 30 seconds and answer one question in the comments right now. What is the one spot in your yard that has defeated every single plant you have ever tried in it? The slope, the dry strip, the compacted corner, the ground under the tree where nothing survives. Tell me what state you garden in. I rate every comment at Bloom Roots. I respond to as many as I can, and your answers directly shape what this channel covers next. Drop it below right now and then come back, because Plant 7 is the one that the entire Sun Belt has been waiting for someone to talk about. Honestly, Plant 7, blue grama grass. The lawn care industry in Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, and every other state where water tables are dropping and summer temperatures are climbing has been selling the idea that a proper yard requires a grass type that evolved in climates nothing like yours, maintained at moisture levels that your municipal water system is increasingly unable to support, and replaced every few years when the inevitable damage from heat and drought makes it unsalvageable. Blue grama grass is what the land was already trying to grow on those properties before someone decided to fight it. Bodilua gracilis is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 10, the broadest zone range on this entire list, and it is the most drought-tolerant turfgrass alternative available to American gardeners in hot, dry climates without qualification or honest competition. It evolved on the Great Plains through documented multi-year droughts that killed imported grass species outright, and it survived those droughts because its root system reaches moisture at depths that conventional longgrass roots never attempt. It grows to 12 to 18 inches naturally with a fine, soft, blue-green summer texture and seed heads that curve sideways at their tips like tiny eyelashes, distinctive and genuinely beautiful, and in constant gentle motion in even the lightest breeze. In states where the water bill for a conventional lawn runs into hundreds of dollars every July and August, replacing even a portion of that lawn with blue grama grass planted. This June is not a lifestyle choice. It is a financial decision with returns that compound every single summer you own the property. Plant 8, Carl Förster feather reed grass. This is the grass that converted an entire generation of American gardeners who had stopped believing their conditions were compatible with anything beautiful. The ones who had tried things and watched them fail and quietly decided their soil was simply too difficult, their drainage too poor, their yard too extreme for ornamental planting to ever deliver what they were promised. Carl Förster does not care about your difficult conditions. Calamagrostis ex acutiflora. Carl Förster is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and it grows in clay. It grows in wet, poorly draining soil that sits after rain. It grows in part shade. It grows in full sun. It grows in the kind of compacted, construction-disturbed, nutritionally stripped ground that exists in the yard of almost every house built in the last 30 years, the soil that has the texture and fertility of a parking lot. In that soil, Carl Förster grows 5 to 6 feet tall in a tight, narrow, upright column that adds genuine vertical drama without the sprawling width that makes most tall plants difficult to place. In June, it sends up feathery, pink-tinged plumes that mature to warm wheat gold by midsummer and hold that color and that structure through winter without collapsing, without flopping, without asking you to stake or support or worry about it at all. One cut in late February back to 6 inches. That is the complete annual care program. Everything else, it handles entirely on its own, and the result by the 3rd season is a planting that reads as architectural and expensive, in a way that has nothing to do with what you paid for it, and everything to do with what June planting in warm soil produces in terms of root establishment and long-term performance. Plant 9, Switchgrass Shenandoah. There are plants that are beautiful. There is one plant on this list that is beautiful through summer, and then in September becomes the reason people slow their cars in front of your house and take photographs from the sidewalk without asking permission, because they cannot help themselves. Panicum virgatum. Shenandoah is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and through summer it is upright, airy, blue-green, fine textured, 3 to 4 feet of understated presence that pairs with any flowering perennial without competing for attention. And then the temperatures drop in September, and Shenandoah does the thing that has made it the most discussed ornamental grass in American residential landscaping for the last decade. It turns red, not ambiguous bronze, not faded orange that disappoints in person after looking promising in a catalog photograph. Deep, saturated, unambiguous red that intensifies as the season progresses and holds through December in most American growing zones. The red of a Great Plains sunset, the red that stops people mid-sentence when they encounter it in someone's yard without warning. The airy seed heads catch morning light against that red foliage on a clear October afternoon, and the combination is one of those outdoor moments that makes you understand why people spend decades refining a garden toward a single perfect seasonal image. It is native to North American prairies and wetland margins, which means it manages drought and occasional standing water with equal indifference. No irrigation once established, no fertilizer, one cut in late February. That is the entire relationship it asks of you for every season. It grows in your yard. Before plant 10, I want to say something directly to everyone watching this video who has spent money on a yard that did not deliver what they paid for. You were not doing it wrong. You were using the wrong plants. You were using plants that were bred for appearance in a controlled nursery environment and sold to you without honest information about what they actually need to perform in real American growing conditions, in real summer heat, in real drought, in real clay and sand and compacted suburban soil. The plants on this list were not bred for a controlled environment. They evolved in your environment. They were shaped by the exact conditions your yard produces, and they are waiting for you to give them the ground they were built for. That is not a marketing claim. That is 400 years of botanical history, and it is available to you this June for the cost of an afternoon at the nursery. Subscribe to Bloom Roots right now if this channel is giving you a plan you can actually use, because next week goes just as deep, and the week after that, and the week after that. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and then finish with plant 10 and 11, because together they are what makes this entire planting function as a system rather than just a list. Plant 10, Black-Eyed Susan Goldsturm. This plant has been growing along American roadsides from Maine to New Mexico for centuries, naturalizing itself in highway medians and gravel shoulders and the kind of exposed, never-watered ground that exists because no one has the budget to maintain it. At that exact same moment, people have been paying $9 a pot for it at garden centers 50 feet from where it is growing wild for free. Rudbeckia fulgida goldsturm is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it blooms from midsummer all the way through October, 4 full months of golden yellow petals around a near-black center so vivid and so consistent that when your neighbors' conventional gardens are exhausted and brown in August, yours is just reaching its visual peak. University performance trials confirm that goldsturm specifically, not the standard species, but this cultivar, blooms longer and more prolifically under real garden conditions than any comparable Rudbeckia available to American gardeners. It spreads through underground rhizomes and free self-seeding simultaneously, building a colony over years that you never planted and never paid for. Leave the seed heads standing through winter and goldfinches, work them from October through February, giving your yard more bird life in the coldest months than your neighbor's tidy, cut-back, mulched-over beds will see all season. No supplemental water once established, no fertilizer, no division required for years. Plant it this June and then practice the discipline of leaving it alone and letting it become the colony it was always going to become, once someone finally gave it the right ground in the right month. Plant 11, purple coneflower. Every plant on this list earns its place through the growing season. This one earns its place in every season simultaneously, and then keeps earning it in ways you will still be discovering 5 years from now. Echinacea purpurea is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it performs in heat, in drought, in clay, in sand, in the kind of compacted, neglected soil that ends the ambitions of imported ornamentals within a single difficult summer, with a consistency that makes experienced gardeners trust it the way a builder trusts a load-bearing wall. Deep, rosy pink to rich purple petals, reflexing backward around a raised copper-colored central cone, bold and architectural and genuinely beautiful in late afternoon light, in a way that makes it look like someone made a decision rather than just filled a gap. The ecological return is staggering. Bumblebees from the moment flowers open, monarch butterflies through the heart of summer. Goldfinches on the seed heads from October through February, clinging and working, and giving your November yard more movement and life and sound than most conventional gardens produce at their absolute June peak. It spreads through rhizome expansion and free self-seeding simultaneously, building a colony over years at zero ongoing cost. One mature 3-year clump divides into 8 to 12 viable plants in a single morning, $50 to $100 worth of free divisions at current nursery prices from a plant you purchased once. Poor, dry soil makes it bloom harder and stand taller than rich, amended soil ever will. Give it your most difficult ground this June. Watch it succeed in the exact spot where everything else has given up. That is not luck. That is a native plant finally growing in the conditions it was shaped by, and the result is something that looks less like gardening and more like the land remembering what it was always supposed to grow. Here's the part that changes how you think about June specifically, and why this month matters more than any other for the planting decisions on this list. By the time June arrives, soil temperatures across most American growing zones are sitting between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the precise biological window where native grass and prairie perennial root systems establish fastest, reach deepest, and build the structural drought resilience they need to survive their first American summer without supplemental irrigation. Plant in that window, and roots have 8 to 10 weeks of warm, productive soil to anchor before the hardest heat of July and August arrives. 8 to 10 weeks of building the root depth and the drought architecture that makes these plants genuinely self-sufficient for every season that follows. Wait until August, and those same roots are trying to establish in soil that is either radiating stored heat or beginning its slow cooling toward dormancy. The plant survives, but it does not build the root system that makes it self-sufficient the following summer. And self-sufficiency the following summer is the entire point. June is not a preference. It is a biological window that is open right now and closes whether you use it or not. 3 rules that determine whether this June planting builds the yard you want or adds to the list of things that did not quite deliver. Rule 1, stop amending the soil before planting natives and understand why that instruction matters. The lawn and garden industry profits from selling you amendments, compost, fertilizer, soil conditioner, products that improve your soil before you plant. For imported ornamentals, that advice is correct, and that is exactly why the industry gives it, because imported ornamentals in unimproved American soil underperform and need replacing, and that replacement cycle is where the revenue lives. Native prairie plants in rich, heavily amended soil produce weak, shallow roots that never develop the depth required for genuine drought tolerance. Little blue stem in composted, amended ground loses its upright architectural form and falls open at the center. Prairie drop seed in fertilized soil grows lush and green, and then fails in the first serious dry stretch because its roots never needed to reach for deep moisture. Plant natives in the ground you have. That ground is not a problem. It is the environment those plants were built to excel in. Rule 2, water once at planting deeply enough to settle soil around roots and provide moisture below the surface, and then exercise genuine restraint. Overwatering in the establishment phase produces root systems that stay shallow because they do not need to reach deeper. Shallow roots make plants that need irrigation forever. Deep roots make plants that manage their own water needs through the driest American summers. Underwater slightly, rather than overwater consistently, and the root architecture you produce will make these plants self-sufficient within a single season. Rule 3, leave everything standing through winter and resist the social pressure of neighborhood tidiness expectations until late February. The seed heads are feeding birds through the months when food is scarcest. The hollow stems are housing the overwintering larval stages of native bees and beneficial insects, whose return in spring manages the pest species that would otherwise damage your garden before the damage is visible. The standing structure is insulating plant crowns through the freeze-thaw cycles that kill more perennials than sustained cold alone ever does. Leave it standing. Cut it back to 6 inches in late February before new growth emerges. Your yard will be more ecologically alive, more visually interesting through winter, and more naturally self-sustaining than anything managed the conventional way on your street. And you will do less work to get there than your neighbor who hired the landscaping company and is already planning to do it all over again. You came into this video with a yard that costs you money, costs you time, and resets to 0 every winter. You are leaving it with 11 plants, a planting window that is open right now, and a plan for a yard that waters itself through drought, feeds itself through poor soil, manages its own pest pressure through the insects it houses, and becomes more structurally beautiful and more ecologically alive every single year without a mower, without a hose, without a fertilizer schedule, and without your weekends. That yard is not a dream version of the one you have. It is the one you can build this June with one afternoon at a native plant nursery and the willingness to plant things that do not need you the way your lawn needs you. If Bloom Roots gave you that plan today, subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Drop a comment below telling me which plant you are putting in the ground first this June and what state you are gardening in. I read every single comment. I respond to as many as I can. And what you tell me shapes exactly what this channel covers next. This is your yard. This is your June. The window is open right now. Go plant something that outlasts everything you have tried before.